It is the third day of the Battle of Qadisiyyah. Rostam, the de facto ruler of the Sasanian Empire, is increasingly anxious about the continuous arrival of Muslim reinforcements. Desperate for a decisive breakthrough, he decides to leverage his numerical advantage. The Sasanian commander launches a major offensive, deploying infantry, cavalry, and their formidable war elephants in an all-out assault against the Arab lines. Under the immense pressure of the Persian onslaught, the Muslim forces are being pushed back. Their lines begin to falter. But can they turn the tide? The Battle of Qadisiyyah represents the last stand of the once mighty Persian Empire against the Arab incursion. Their final chance to protect the Persian capital from falling into Arab hands. Join us as we delve into another chapter of epic histories. It's the year 632. Following the death of the Prophet Muhammad, Abu Bakr ascends as Caliph of the Rashidun Caliphate. He swiftly initiates invasions against his two formidable neighbors, the Byzantine Empire and the Sasanian Empire. Under the command of the experienced Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Arabs rapidly seize Iraq from the Persians and Syria from the Byzantines. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the Arab forces achieve a decisive victory against the Romans in the Battle of Yarmouk. Just 3 months later, the Arabs confront their Persian adversaries as Rostam, the de facto ruler of the Sasanian Empire, advances towards the Euphrates River with an army of 60,000. With Arab resources stretched thin, the new Rashidun Caliph Umar dispatches his most trusted commander, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, a revered companion of the Prophet, to counter the Persian threat. As Sa'd advances towards Mesopotamia, numerous Arab tribes rally to his cause, expanding his army to 30,000 strong, the most formidable Arab force assembled since the invasion began. This is the story of the Persians' desperate attempt to halt the Arab invasion, culminating in an epic battle that would echo through the ages. Welcome to the tale of the Battle of Qadisiyyah.
This is where our journey begins, a journey back in time. From the dawn of civilization in Mesopotamia to the rise of glorious empires, from the halo of fabled personalities to the shadows of ruthless regimes. Witness the drama of epic battles and the moments when the world stood still. Events that didn't destroy us, but defined us. We combine cutting-edge technology and artificial intelligence to resurrect legendary historical towns and retell ancient love stories. Underpinned by powerful music, you'll feel like you're part of it. Welcome to Epic Histories, where each chapter brings the past alive.
In our previous videos, we've delved deeply into the protracted conflicts between the Middle Ages giants, the Sasanian Empire and the Byzantine Empire. We explored how their 26-year war, beginning in 602, along with civil strife, financial turmoil, and a devastating plague, weakened their military might. We then shifted focus to the Arabian Peninsula in pre-Islamic times, detailing how the actions of Prophet Muhammad from 571 to 632 led to the unification of the Arabian Peninsula under Islam. After the Prophet's death, the first Rashidun Caliph, Abu Bakr, faced immediate dissent from rebellious tribes across the Arabian Peninsula. Known as the Ridda Wars, or Wars of Apostasy, he crushed these rebellions by mid-633. Almost immediately after securing victory, Abu Bakr ordered invasions of the neighboring empires, dispatching his most seasoned general, Khalid ibn al-Walid, to Persia, and 4 army corps to raid Byzantine lands in the Levant. Within a year, Khalid had conquered all lands west of Mesopotamia from the Persians and then crossed the desert into Byzantine Syria to aid his fellow Muslims. In a series of battles against Rome, the Arabs captured most of Byzantine Palestine and Syria. By August 634, Abu Bakr had died, and Umar ibn al-Khattab became the second caliph of the Rashidun Caliphate. In a final attempt to repel the Arabs, Rome sent a massive army of 40,000 to 90,000 men, but suffered a crushing defeat against a much smaller Arab force in the Battle of Yarmouk. With Roman resistance broken, the Arabs claimed Syria and went on to reconquer major urban centers between Antioch and Jerusalem. While the Muslims concentrated on the Syrian front, tensions escalated on the Persian side. After Khalid ibn al-Walid's capture of Al-Hira in 633, Yazdegerd III shifted his military focus to the southern front. In 635, seeking an alliance with the Byzantines, Yazdegerd married Manyan, the daughter of Byzantine Emperor Heraclius, and began organizing armies to expel the Arabs. The Sassanians managed to recoup some of their lost land and crushed Arab forces led by Abu Ubaid and al-Muthanna in the Battle of the Bridge. Despite their victory, the Persians couldn't fully capitalize on it. Civil war and rebellions forced the Sasanian forces to return to Ctesiphon to address renewed unrest. With King Yazdegerd only 8 years old, he was unable to unite the fragmented nobility. Consequently, he called upon his supreme commander, Rustam Farrokhzad, to handle all administrative tasks. Rustam, a descendant of the house of Ispa-Budhan, one of the 7 great houses of Iran, and a military leader renowned beyond Persian borders, effectively became the de facto ruler of the Sasanian Empire. Yazdegerd tasked him with defending the empire from all enemies. In a major counter-offensive against the Muslims, Rustam managed to push the Muslims back and regain control over several key cities. In 634, he recaptured the strategically important town of Al-Hira. By this time, it became evident that Caliph Umar needed to send fresh troops to reinforce the remaining Arab forces on the Persian front. Having already deployed all available forces to Roman lands, Caliph Umar had to draw manpower from tribes that had previously rebelled against him during the Ridda Wars. The Caliph required a commander beyond reproach, capable of resolving tribal differences. His choice was Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. Sa'd, the 7th person to embrace Islam and a respected companion of the Prophet, was described by British medievalist Hugh Kennedy as the first man to fire an arrow in the cause of Islam, and known for his reputation as something of a hothead. He was to lead the other 2 generals assigned to Persia, al-Muthanna and Jarir. According to Muslim sources, Sa'ad's presence united all tribes and their leaders in spirit. As his army approached the Euphrates, more men joined his ranks. By the time they reached Mesopotamia, the army under Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, estimated by modern historians to be around 30,000 strong, was likely the most formidable force the Sassanians had faced in this war so far. To counter the Arab threat, Heraclius and Yazdegerd planned to launch simultaneous offensives against the Caliphate. However, frequent rebellions within the Sasanian realm and economic hardships significantly delayed the Sasanian response. After wintering in Najd, Saad's army reached the outskirts of Iraq in April 636. Caliph Umar instructed his commander to initiate negotiations with Yazdegerd, inviting him to convert to Islam. This was a strategic delaying tactic that allowed Umar to redirect nearly 6,000 more men to Yarmouk. Following their victory against the Romans, some troops from Syria were ordered to return and reinforce Saad's forces. The already formidable Arab force was further bolstered by many Persian Arabs within Sasanian territories, who, weary of the ongoing civil war, were ready to switch sides. This shift was made more appealing by the lower and more predictable Islamic tax system. In 636, Rashidun citizens were subject to only two taxes: the Qadisiyyah, a tax on non-Muslims living in Muslim lands which converts did not have to pay, and the zakat, an annual tax of 2.5% on surplus wealth, which most poor families who converted would also be exempt from. Rustam is said to have sent emissaries to the Muslims, hoping to avoid a confrontation. However, the Muslims were not inclined to negotiate. During the discussions, they presented the Sassanids with the usual three options: convert to Islam, pay the jizya, or face the Arab army on the battlefield. Rustam chose the battle. Initially, Rustam preferred to engage the Muslims in smaller skirmishes to minimize risk. However, he was opposed by the Persian nobility, who, likely emboldened by their victory at the Battle of the Bridge, pushed for a decisive battle. In response, Rustam assembled a massive army of nearly 60,000 men and crossed the Euphrates in July 636. After an exhausting march through Iraq's blistering summer, Rustam ordered his men to take positions and set up camp near the small town of Qadisiyyah. A few months later, Saad's army reached Qadisiyyah and spotted Rustam's forces across the Al-Atiq Canal, about 30 miles east of Hira. Rather than engaging immediately, both armies remained in their positions for several months, with peace only interrupted by small scouting missions and raids. Knowing that the Muslims had previously been defeated during a river crossing at the Battle of the Bridge, Rustam was confident in waiting, hoping the Arabs would attempt to cross the river again. The Muslims, on the other hand, were engaged in a two-front war against Persia and Rome, and thus chose to remain largely passive on the Mesopotamian front. When all negotiations failed, however, the Persians decided it was time to attack. The Battle of Qadisiyyah commenced on November 16, 636. With Muslim guards securing the Al-Atiq Canal bridge, Rustam's imperial forces spent the night blocking the waterway with debris to facilitate their crossing. Meanwhile, the Muslim army repositioned a mile back, allowing the Sasanians to traverse the canal. At dawn, after the Persian troops had crossed, Rustam commanded his army to advance in battle formation against the waiting Muslim forces. Both armies were structured into 4 divisions of infantry and cavalry. Rustam's diverse army was drawn from across the vast Sasanian Empire, including regions from Azerbaijan to Khorasan. It comprised Kurds, Armenians, Turks, Arab allies, and various other groups. The central units of the imperial army were led by Jalinus and Berzan, while the elite Persian immortals, numbering 10,000, were among the ranks. The left and right wings were commanded by Miran and Hormuzan, both of noble Persian descent. In front of Rustam's line stood a formidable screen of 33 armored elephants, with 18 positioned in the center and the rest divided between the wings. Rustam, clad in ornate armor, took his place on a raised throne just behind the center, accompanied by a small strategic reserve. approximately a mile to the west, Said's 30,000 warriors were arrayed in a similar formation, with 4 tribally organized divisions, infantry in the front line and cavalry in the rear. Alongside the Muslim forces from Arabia, Christian Arabs from the Sasanian border and some converted Persian officers had joined the ranks. Due to severe illness, Saad had retreated to a fortress in nearby Uzayb, from where he issued orders to his generals. The various units were led by their tribal chieftains, including Shurabil ibn Simt, a seasoned veteran of the Ridda Wars and the Syrian campaign. The battle commenced with the Mubazarin engaging in duels with the Sassanid champions. As these skirmishes concluded, Rostam advanced his left wing. His strategy was straightforward: crush both flanks of the enemy and then strike at their exposed center. A heavy barrage of arrows from the Sassanid archers rained down on the Muslim warriors. The superior bows and high-quality arrows of the Persians caused significant casualties among the lightly armored Muslims. Although the Muslims attempted to retaliate, their weaker bows and inferior arrows were ineffective against the Persian heavy armor. Rostam then commanded his left wing's elephant corps to charge directly at the opposing Muslim wing. The sight of the massive elephants caused the Rashidun camels to flee, leaving the infantry vulnerable. Without cavalry support, the Muslim warriors were gradually pushed back, suffering casualties under the relentless assault, but they did not break. Observing the turmoil on his right flank from his fortress, Saad ordered 2 cavalry units from the center to reinforce the right wing. These reinforcements struck the Persian troops from both the front and the flank, eventually pushing them back to their original positions. In response, Rostam sent part of his immediate reserve to hold that section of the Muslim army in place and commanded the Sassanid right and right center to advance. Under the cover of another deadly volley of arrows, the Persian war elephants charged into the enemy lines. The sight of the elephants once again caused panic among the Arab camels, which sought refuge behind the infantry lines. The combined assault of archers, elephants, and heavy cavalry proved overwhelming for the Muslim cavalry on that side, which began to show signs of breaking. Realizing the need to neutralize the Sasanian elephants, Saad ordered his light troops to take action. With agility and precision, these soldiers maneuvered among the war elephants, cutting the wires that connected the mounting platforms atop the beasts. At the same time, they showered the riders with arrows, killing many on the spot. The plan worked perfectly. The Persians withdrew their elephants, and their right wing and right center retreated. The remaining elephant riders guided their animals behind the main Persian line, and the general Sassanid attack on this side of the battlefield was repelled. Seizing the opportunity created by the enemy's confusion, Saad ordered a general attack across the entire front. The Muslim cavalry attempted to outflank the Persians on both sides, achieving some success. Despite the Sassanids being better equipped, the Muslims were considered superior fighters. This skill allowed a battalion of the Muslim army to break through the Persian lines and approach Rostam, who was seated on his throne. Rather than retreating, Rostam drew his sword and charged into battle. Inspired by their general's bravery, the Persians repelled the counterattack and reorganized their lines. By nightfall, the fighting subsided. This first day of battle, known as the Day of Disorder, saw heavy casualties among the Arab ranks. The wounded Rashidun warriors were tended to by women in the Muslim camp and trained Sassanid surgeons, while the rest of the troops took a much-needed rest. Day 2 began with another round of champion duels. Both armies then lined up and faced off until mid-morning. Persian morale, already waning, plummeted further when they saw large contingents of Muslim reinforcements under Qaqa bin Amr arriving from Syria around noon. Buoyed by their increasing numbers, the Muslims launched a charge across the line, inflicting heavy casualties on the Persians. Despite this, the Sasanian lines, reinforced by their heavy cavalry, remained intact and unbroken. As the fighting grew more brutal, casualties mounted, but after 2 hours of intense combat, both sides withdrew. By this time, Persian casualties were 4 times higher than those of the Muslims. Muslim General Kaka devised a clever plan. He ordered the camels to be camouflaged with wooden structures, cloths, and desert vegetation to make them appear as large, terrifying beasts. These towering, oddly clad animals sent the Sasanian horses into a frenzy, disrupting the Sasanian cavalry and causing further chaos among their ranks. This left the Persian left-center infantry particularly exposed. Sensing an opportunity, Sa'd ordered a full-scale attack along the entire front. Without the support of Persian cavalry, the zealous Muslim warriors cut through the Persian units, driving many towards the waterway and nearly causing the Sassanid army to collapse. In a bold move, Rostam intervened with his cavalry once again. His personal involvement and unwavering confidence rallied his shattered contingents, allowing them to rejoin the fight and ultimately saving the day. As dusk fell over Qadisiyyah, the Muslims were forced to retreat. Both sides suffered heavy losses, but the Persian casualties were significantly higher. Among the fallen was General Bahman, one of Persia's top commanders who was killed by Kaka bin Amr's assault. Realizing the need to shift the battle's dynamics, Rostam prepared a surprise for Sa'd's troops on the 3rd day. The Sassanids had reorganized their elephant corps, positioning them at the front, each surrounded by protective rings of infantry and cavalry. Persian archers unleashed a barrage of arrows, pinning the Muslim forces in place as Rostam ordered a general advance. As the barrage ended, the entire Sassanid army, led by the fearsome elephants, began their advance. As they neared Sa'd's line, the infantry shielding the elephants moved aside, allowing the massive beasts to crash into the Muslim lines at close range. The sight of the elephants caused the Arab horses to panic and flee, leaving the infantry to bear the brunt of the attack. The elephants wreaked havoc, causing heavy casualties among the Muslims, who were gored, crushed, or cut down by Persian soldiers. As the Muslims fell back, Rostam attempted to exploit the gaps in their lines by sending his cavalry forward, aiming to attack Uzayb Castle and kill Sa'd to end the war. However, the Muslim cavalry quickly blocked the gaps and repelled the Persian advance. Despite this setback, the Muslim army was on the verge of disintegration, even as more reinforcements arrived from the west. As had often been the case since the Arab invasions began, the battle was once again significantly influenced by information from a defector. A former Persian soldier revealed the elephant's weaknesses to the Muslims. Acting on his advice, the Rashidun infantry maneuvered through the ranks, surrounded the 2 lead elephants, and blinded them before overwhelming the creatures and their onboard missile troops. Soon, most of the elephants were killed. Many others, driven into a frenzy by pain and unable to see through their mutilated eyes, panicked and began rampaging through the Sasanian ranks. With the elephants out of the battlefield, Sa'd ordered the camouflaged camels forward once more, along with the entire Arab infantry, who crashed into the Sasanian lines with devastating force. This day became known as the Day of Hardship, as the battle raged throughout the night until sunrise. Mere exhaustion eventually forced the soldiers on both sides to gradually disengage. The day ended with heavy casualties on both sides. As day 4 dawned, both armies were on the brink of collapse. Exhausted from the relentless battles of the previous days, They were resting in their camps when a sandstorm suddenly swept in. Seizing the opportunity, Qaqa bin Amr gathered 700 troops and, under the cover of the sandstorm, launched an attack on the blinded Persian center, followed by a general advance. Qaqa's swift maneuver caught the Persian left wing and left center off guard. The Muslim divisions broke through but couldn't break the lines completely. According to most accounts, the Muslim cavalry penetrated the broken lines and reached Rostam. Isolated and disoriented, the Sassanid general was found by a Rashidun soldier and slain. The Sassanid army did not collapse immediately and initially managed to repel the forces. However, as news of their commander's death spread, their morale plummeted, and the Persian forces began to rout towards the river, followed shortly by both flanks. The Battle of Qadisiyyah was over. The imperial army of the Sassanid Empire had been defeated, with over 20,000 casualties. In contrast, the Muslim losses were fewer than 10,000. Within 3 months, the battles of Yarmouk and Qadisiyyah had firmly established the caliphate as a major power. Despite the Muslims' apparent decisive victories over two of the strongest empires of the time, the regional conflict was far from over. With Heraclius orchestrating from Constantinople, the Byzantines adopted a defensive strategy to safeguard their remaining provinces in Anatolia and Egypt from further incursions. The Sassanians, however, were left in a state of shock. The Battle of Qadisiyyah had deeply shaken them. Jalinus, a Persian commander of Armenian origin, took command of the remaining Sasanian forces from the battle and managed to get most of his men across the Euphrates River. Determined not to allow the fleeing divisions of Rostam's army to regroup, Saad dispatched cavalry units to pursue the retreating Persians. For the Arabs, the path to Ctesiphon was now clear, and Caliph Umar ordered its capture. Ctesiphon, the crown jewel of the Sasanian Empire, stood as a beacon of Persian grandeur in the 7th century. Situated on the banks of the Tigris River, this vast metropolis was more than just a capital. It was a symbol of power, wealth, and architectural brilliance. With a population of around 500,000, Ctesiphon was the largest city in the world at the time, and the residence of the emperor. By March 637, when the Arabs arrived, the city presented a sight unlike anything they had ever seen. Its skyline was dominated by the magnificent Tak Kasra, the grand arch of the royal palace, a testament to Persian engineering and artistry. The city also housed the emperor's White Palace, magnificent gardens, bustling markets, and grand libraries filled with ancient knowledge. Shah Yazdegerd's efforts to rally troops and mount a formidable defense were undermined by low morale within his army. When the Muslims reached the Persian capital, the Sasanians had barely managed to organize a garrison and completed deep trenches around the town. But would that be enough to stop the Arabs? Join us in our next video as we uncover the story of the Arab siege of Ctesiphon. Thank you so much for watching. Producing these videos involves a lot of effort and resources, and your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this documentary, please consider giving it a like and leaving a comment. It really helps us reach more viewers. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content, and click on one of these videos to continue the adventure.